So I took my sister out for her birthday years ago to a club, and I realized I forgot my ID at home. So the bouncer, I'm like, dude, I forgot my ID. I'm a doctor. And he's like, okay, whatever. And we see this drunk guy. He's walking down the street going like this, clapping on the one and the three. You know what I mean? He's standing in front of this other guy, and the other guy's like, yo, stand back, stand back. He goes and he swings at the other guy.
Okay, so he
and the other guy ducks out of the way and Coke locks him. This guy goes down like a 2x4. Boom. He starts.
Tongue is in the back of the throat.
Yes. What do you call that again? So I do a jaw lift to help him get air in. And I'm like, call 911. So who comes down the street but the bouncer? And I'm like, dude, I told you I was a doctor.
Before we get started with this episode, as always, I always like to get fan or at least feedback.
Fan?
Well, I was going to say fan feedback or fan responses.
You got fans?
Y'all know. Yeah, I got fans. What you talking about?
You a fan, you a fan, you a fan, you a fan.
Say the whole word. Say it out. Say it out. Say it out loud. Yeah, see, you can't pod. But anyway, we want to shout out Dr. Ruchi Amin. Okay?
Is it Ruchi or Ruchi?
I don't have my glasses on. I think it's Ruchi.
Butchering this.
Dr. Amin.
I am huge on podcasts, so I've been listening to a lot of investment podcasts. I narrowed it down to a couple of people who had a voice that I felt like resonated with me, kind of spoke at a level that I understood, and had goals that I think aligned with what I wanted to do from a financial standpoint for me and my family. And what I did is I now listen to those religiously, and I've been able to build on some of that knowledge.
Yo, let us know if we're saying your name the right way, but Pete Surge, MD, let me share the screen. You hate when I share screens.
I hate when you share screens.
Why?
I can do this better than you can.
Okay, but I'm just saying, sometimes, we can do it too. But Pete Surge, MD, created a list. She shouted us out on Instagram. It looks like she's a pediatric surgeon, which is one of the hardest fellowships that you can get into. So shout out to you. I know you did your work, and it's no joke. But basically, she says in her post, one of my biggest goals this year was to improve my financial literacy. Not only did I learn some really helpful tips along the way, but I'm going to share some of my favorite finance-related lessons with you. Number one, Erica taught me. This podcast consistently has great guests and amazing conversation. If you're only able to choose one podcast to listen to weekly, this is it. Isn't that a local? That's a subtle diss at us. Okay. Alfred, please put in a Michael Jordan, and I took that personally.
It became personal with me.
Number two, net worth and chill with your rich BFF. A lot of great financial and investment tips that are easy to understand and even easier to implement. Insider info from a Wall Street girly for those of us with a basic financial background. I got to wear my glasses. And number three, Docs Outside the Box, hosted by a husband and wife duo that give great insight into locum tenens and navigating non-traditional roles in the healthcare field. Their recent episode with the locum fleckums is definitely worth a listen. So, Dr. Amin, thank you very much. We want to say we appreciate you adding us to your esteemed list, but we would beg to differ and say that we are number one, particularly for you, because we think the information that we give on a weekly basis is like that. Whether it's...
So you here to tell her what she needs?
Relationship advice, career advice, personal finance advice, contract advice, whatever it may be, physical advice. You see this right here, right? Any type of advice that we give you is definitely worth it. Why are you sucking your, But we do appreciate you putting us in your list, though. Shout us out on Instagram, anything.
Why
just
you
like that.
always got to be showing somebody your guns?
Because, well... I put a lot of work into these.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Okay. Very good. But thank you, Dr. Amin, for shouting us out. We really appreciate that. And yeah.
Real quick, before we get into the main meat and potatoes of the show, what's the best way for people to contact us? Because you do most of the responding to the stuff. You found this, actually.
Yes, I'm knowing that.
Isn't that growth on my part? I'm recognizing that.
See, but what's not growth is that you didn't allow me to be the one to introduce it. So you just took it on yourself like you saw it, but you didn't see it. I'm the one who saw it. Okay? So while you're growing, I'm devolving because I'm shouting you out in a way that is negative. See? So
somebody text us a therapist phone number. Text us a therapist number, New Jersey. We'll even do virtual because we need therapy.
So anywho, yeah. So the best way to contact us. You can contact us via DM. Although DMs do get lost. Like if you're not, if either you're not following us or I don't know what it is, but sometimes Instagram will take your DMs and put it like in hidden requests.
Tell them what's the best way for them to contact.
So, but DMs, you could try DMs. You can try, actually, if you comment on our stuff, that's actually one of the best ways because then we're guaranteed to get it.
Text us, and you can just click fan mail or hit us up on Instagram or the last thing was YouTube. YouTube comments are really key. We've been getting a lot of YouTube comments also, so hit us up on there. So, all right, let's get back to the show. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm your host, Dr. Nee. I'm joined by
Dr. Renai.
It's a very restrained version of your intro.
The jet lag version.
Is that what it is? Is that all what it is?
That's it. I'm tired.
You sure?
I'm tired.
Because I'm going through my list, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is not doing enough with packing. Renee feeling overwhelmed and antagonism.
What?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Were you upset? You were a little bit perturbed with the amount of packing. Hey, y'all, just so y'all know, I worked up until we were about to leave for the medical mission. And that probably was a big mistake looking back. So for me, I'm not going to lie. Like I always try to front load my schedule before I leave because I'm going to be gone for like 3 weeks. So part of that is not really considering that during that time of right before you're about to leave, you need to pack. So while I was working, guess who was packing not only for herself and not only for me and not only for 2 kids, but also to bring some stuff for our new apartment. This girl. So she wasn't too happy about that by the time.
No, I really
together.
wasn't.
So.
No, I wasn't. So Alfred, I want you to run the footage of me packing right now as I'm talking because.
You took footage of it.
I took footage of it because, see, this was what was going to happen. What's going to happen is that all of a sudden it's going to be forgotten how much packing needed to be done.
So you didn't. So you were like, this is predetermined. Like this is like you was building a case, basically. That's messed up.
I was building a case. That's right,
guys. Red
That's
flag.
Right. That's what I was doing.
Alfred, put a red flag.
That's
out.
exactly what I was
building
doing.
a case.
Okay. So Alfred. Okay. Now for real, Alfred, run the footage. So, I ended up having to pack 9 huge pieces of, we'll call it luggage. So 5 big suitcases and 4 bins. The 4 bins had lots of stuff that we needed for our apartment in Ghana. So things, pots, pans, utensils. You might be wondering like, oh, why didn't you get all that stuff in Ghana? First of all, we were only going to be there in that city of Accra for about a week. And my sister and my nephew were coming with us. So we wanted to spend the time with family and being able to see the sights with my sister and my nephew, instead of going around Ghana and shopping.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll have to do the shopping now instead of later. While we're in Ghana. So I just packed a whole bunch of stuff. So Amazon boxes up the wazoo came to our house, ended up distributing everything in a way so that it was packageable and not over 50 pounds because Delta was not going to let us go with anything over 50 pounds. But I will say the one thing that was good was that for some reason, usually you get to leave with, or you get to travel with 2 2 check-in bags. So you get to travel with 2 check-in bags. For whatever reason, because of the way we bought our tickets, we were able to travel with 3 check-in bags. So that really helped a lot because we ended up with 9 pieces to check in, and there were 4 of us.
Yeah, so it worked. It was really convenient,
yeah.
But it was tough on Renee to pack. And I want to apologize to you for doing that.
I just want you to know, guys.
See, you see how she's not even letting me finish? That's how I know she's. Go
He
ahead.
came home with less than 24 hours. Within less than 24 hours of us having to leave for Ghana. Now, let me tell you something. I just want the record to show.
I got to turn your gain down because you can tell like the oomph in your voice is bringing the bass up.
Okay, whatever. I am wife of the year.
You want to bring the bass down a little bit.
Put a trophy in my hand, Alfred. I am wife of the year because let me tell you something. No other woman would have been able to restrain herself from giving you what you deserve.
Restrain?
Yes.
What is it that I deserved? Which leads me to this point. Listen, guys, when you go to our
tell
podcast,
him what he deserved.
When you go to our podcast and you go to the show notes, just click on send us a text message. When you click on that on your phone, it'll take you to your text platform, whatever it is on iPhone or Android, and you can tell us exactly what you think, and it's going to come in as fan mail. And tell everybody, did I do my wife dirty, or is she exaggerating and using a little bit of some hyperbole here? Let us know, but proceed. Go ahead.
No, that's all I had to say. Because, see, everybody else is going to say it for me. You messed up. You done messed up. You know you done messed up.
Put a ring on your finger. Like, how did I mess up?
Listen, let me tell you something.
How did I mess up?
This right here is old. Okay? This old. You didn't even come back with an upgrade. You came back
You didn't
with
request an
nothing.
upgrade. You didn't request an upgrade.
Nothing in
It was
hand.
so fly. Like, you have the iPhone 1.
And
You have the iPhone 1, and it's so good that
yeah.
you love what it is. The prototype is excellent. So,
okay.
But listen, guys. So we were in Ghana for 3 weeks. 2 of those weeks basically was on a medical mission. 2 weeks of seeing patients. The surgery numbers, I'm still calculating it, but it's somewhere in the 30s in terms of operations. OB is somewhere in the same range in terms of operations. Our team, we had an OB resident who's a 4th year. We had a gynonc fellow, and then we had 1 OB attending and 2 gynonc attendings. Question real quick before, so I don't sound like an idiot. The gynonc or the gynonc attendings, are they just considered OB attendings or?
No, they're gynonc. They're surgeons.
Okay,
Gynonc,
got you.
They don't do deliveries.
Got you. Okay. And then there were 2 surgeons. Me, as well as a guy that he's been on our trip for like 3 years now. He's done an excellent job. So that was our team. A lot of highs. We had a lot of highs, as with most trips. Not many lows, but we got a lot of work done. And the other thing that I'm really proud of, I even shouldn't say and the other thing. The biggest thing is the collaboration that occurs. So, what we pride International Healthcare Volunteers, which is the organization that we go with, is the ability for us to collaborate with the physicians, the surgeons, the nurses, the medical students who are on hand there. So it's almost like we learn from them as much as they are learning from us. We do some presentations. We learn about what, they do in certain situations. And it's a great experience. And I think this time, what I wanted to start off with is the flight home is about 10 hours. And during that flight home, I was if you can imagine, 2 seats on one side of the airport or on the airplane, 3 in the middle, and then the other 2. And our kids, 7 and 5, were sitting in the 2 on one side of the airplane.
Because they refused to be separated.
Yeah. Renee was sitting in the middle seat, and then I was sitting on the aisle. So I primarily was the de-agitator. I was stopping fights, making sure they weren't spending too much time on their iPads, making sure they eat, making sure they don't spill. But there were times where I got a chance to sleep and have some downtime, and I got a chance to think about the trip, which in a way in which I haven't thought about the trip in a long time. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was like, yo, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is the way in which I want to practice. And now, 12 years later, the thought process that I had is, in essence, are we still relevant? Right? Like the message that we give, the message that we give to residents, the message that we give to the medical students, is it still relevant? Right. Mainly because we're closer now to being like veteran attendings than 10 years ago when we were basically fresh out of residency, fresh out of fellowship. Even 2 years later after that, same thing. You're closer to being a resident than you are to being an attending. So I know that you were giving advice to one of the OB residents. about, her transitioning from being a fourth year to becoming an attending. She's not going to go into fellowship or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I just thought about it. I was like, man, like, does she really, like, do we talk at a level that is actionable, understandable on her level?
I mean,
You
I
see what I'm
think
saying?
so. Yeah, I think so. I think.
Well, how about just tell her the advice that you were giving her?
So this is a young lady, she's in her fourth year of OB residency, and she is planning to move to a different state to be with her significant other. And so she's pretty sure about where she wants to practice, right? And that it seems like she's pretty clear that she wants to do full scope OBGYN as well. We talked a little bit about locums, but that really wasn't her thing. But what we ended up talking more about was just kind of her being in the driver's seat at this point, right?
The proverbial driver's seat.
Yeah, that her outlook on opportunities should change, because before it was people giving her an opportunity, like, let me in your med school or let me in your residency, please, and now it's not like that anymore. It's, I'm here, I'm an OBGYN, and if you need an OBGYN and I think that you're a good facility to work with, if we're a good fit, I will go there. But if I don't think that it's a good fit, then I'm not going there. Like, now you have options, right? Because
what's the opposite? And I know but the reason I'm saying it is so we can verbalize it to the audience. Like, the opposite thought process is...
The opposite thought process is, please give me a job.
Yeah.
Please give me a job. And it's like, you don't have to beg for a job. Like,
do you think people are begging for a job?
I don't think people are begging for a job, but I think what sometimes people get trapped into thinking is that this job is the opportunity and I need this opportunity, right? And oftentimes what happens is, and I'm sure all of the graduating, residents have experienced this, open up your email box right now, your inbox, and you're going to see mad recruiters all up in your inbox. And remember that we went through this too, that the first line, right, the subject line of many of those emails is going to be a dollar figure.
You think so?
Yes.
Was that the case?
Yes.
I didn't see that much.
Yes, I saw it a lot.
Okay.
I don't know if that's an OB thing or whatever, but a lot of those, not all, but a lot of those emails, the dollar figure is going to come up, and that's number one. And number two, which is more prevalent than the dollar figure, is the word opportunity. And you got to be real careful about that word. And I've said this on the podcast a million times. Nothing is an opportunity until it actually works for you. Until then, it's just a job opening. Just a job opening.
So they should look at it more like, hey, I'm checking out all of these different openings. Let me interview you, find out if this is a opening that I might be interested in. I'll come and visit. Is this a facility I may want to work at? Do I get along well with what's it like with the partners working together, which is very key, guys. Partners are more important than how much money you can get paid and so forth. All right, so you gave her some of that advice. Yeah,
I gave her some of that advice. I gave her the advice of like you just said, working with colleagues, knowing that you're going to be interviewing, and the first thing that they're going to want to do is show you a house.
Yeah, that's
so that you can,
towards the end
right?
of the day. Or
that's
middle
what's
of the
going to
day.
happen. Yeah, that you're going to go there and they're going to interview you and they're going to show you a house so that you can, lock yourself in. You'll fall in love with the house. And when you fall in love with the house, you might just fall in love with the job, even though that wasn't really the job that you might have wanted, but the house influenced you to take that job. So you got to be really, really, really careful about that. So that's kind of what we were talking about.
I think I overheard you talking about a lawyer, right? Like, you should get a lawyer. Guys, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, you spend this, look, we 10 years out, and I look at all the contracts. Renee looks at all the contracts. But we still have, if it's a new contract that we've never seen before, we still have a lawyer review it. Until this day, I still tell every resident, when you're looking for a new job,
Get a lawyer.
Get a lawyer. It's going to be you're going to pay for it. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be something that you're not used to spending, right? But it is going to be worth it, right? And usually they're on the average between $750, maybe $500 to like maybe $2,000 for them to look at it, review it, mark it up, and get it back to you. Yeah. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit more if you don't feel like, hey, not only did I mark this contract up, not only did I, make some changes, but now I want to have somebody like negotiate on my behalf. Mm-hmm. That's an option also. You may have to pay a little bit more for that. But in general, I heard you mention that to her. Yeah. And that's really good advice, which is every contract you get, you should get evaluated.
I mean, people think about things like this, like, oh, that's expensive, right? Like they see a dollar amount that may be a little bit of a sticker shock to them. And for me, I'm like, okay, let's talk about the word expensive, because what's more expensive is if you get into a contract and you lose tons of money, you lose $10,000, right? Because you signed this contract. There was something in this contract that didn't allow you to maximize the amount of money that you were supposed to make, as opposed to you spending even $1,000 on an attorney who might have caught the fact that you were about to lose $10,000. Right.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that 100%.
So is it expensive? I mean, it might be more money than you were expecting to pay, but in terms of expensive, it's like, listen, you're going to get what you pay for. And if you don't pay for a lawyer, that means you're paying nothing, which means you might actually get what you pay for.
Yeah. What kind of advice? I know she's going to the South, so I know there was some
she's
practice.
Going to the South.
There was some practice advice you gave and so forth.
Well, I didn't give her practice advice per se, because I don't know the landscape in the state that she's going to. I know some of the laws that have changed, especially with the overturn of Roe v. Wade and things like that. But that was one thing I think that she was really concerned about, that this is a state that a lot of OBGYNs are fleeing. And if anybody knows our OBGYN, our OBGYN board certifying body is actually in this state. So I'm not going to name the state, but if you so willing to go and look up where our certifying organization is, then you will know exactly which state I'm talking about. But a lot of OBGYNs supposedly are fleeing this state. And, she was concerned about that, that the laws have changed so much in terms of reproductive health. So, I mean, it's just something for her to think about. And see what her scope of practice is or is not going to be.
Yeah. I would definitely say where I stepped in, because there was a point where the OB attendings were not there, so she was working with me. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that I was saying is, get a lawyer to look at all your contracts. It may cost a small amount, or a little bit more to have that contract evaluated and negotiated if you decide to do that. But it's super important to do that.
Yeah.
I also just kind of got her thought process on what it's like to be, doing a medical mission, either as a fourth-year resident or someone who's fresh out, because that was our experience, right? I think as soon as you finished residency.
Yeah, I graduated 2010. My first mission was 2011.
Oh, so you did a year already? Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought you finished it and then you went right into doing that. Okay, so you were out for a year.
And even then, I was doing locums. I was doing laborist locums, so I wasn't even full scope OB, really.
I think that, I know you disagree with me, but I think that the majority, if not all, medical students, residents, should have an opportunity to practice medicine in what they call like a low resource environment. And in essence,
I don't disagree with that.
That may be overseas, it may be within the United States, or it may be in another part, of North America. But I think that every resident, every medical student needs to take a look at this, because the majority of you all who's listening to this podcast right now, you're probably in a major city or really close to a major city, which means that you have all of the resources that you need, whether it's consultants, supplies, whatever it may be, staffing, you have all of that stuff. Yeah. And, one of the things that for example, we did a case at 11 o'clock at night, a guy had a small bowel obstruction. He had a closed loop small bowel obstruction. They ended up getting a CT scan on him. They called us about the CT scan in the evening. Me and my partner, we had to go back to the hospital and we had to operate on him. And when we opened up the belly, his intestine was twisted, and basically that portion that was twisted was dead. So we had to remove that portion of his bowel. Normally, that process of removing the portion of his small intestine and reconnecting, that's something that probably can take 30 minutes. But it ended up taking us over an hour, close to 2 hours, because we had to hand sew everything. We had to take down everything manually. And I think that that's an experience that not many surgical residents get anymore, right? Particularly nowadays with staplers and wherever you are at in the United States.
Just clip.
You're going to have it.
Done.
And then reconnect, right? And you're going to move on. So I think that experience is something that I think residents would definitely benefit from, because there's going to be a time. It's not going to happen too much, but there's probably going to be a time when you get to the United States, somewhere in the United States where you practice, where you're going to have to do that. And you're not going to have the staplers available to you. The other thing, too, is just your clinical judgment. That's something that doesn't, we talk about it a lot in medical school, but in residency, they kind of talk about it. But when you follow what your attendings do, right, which is see as I do, not as I say, right? Or do as I say.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is what you see from your attendings is, you're ordering a lot of tests, you're ordering a lot of imaging, and then you make a decision based off of that, right? There are plenty of times when that needs to occur. But when you get to a low resource environment, and let's say, for example, you don't have a CT scanner, how are you going to diagnose acute appendicitis in a woman, right? What are the steps that you're going to take? In a man, a 19-year-old male who has right lower quadrant pain, some nausea, vomiting, and tenderness there, it's pretty, for the most part, clear cut. But in a woman, what are you going to do when you don't have a CT scanner?
Yeah.
What are the steps that you're going to take, right? The steps that are in the textbook, are you really going to follow that? Or are you going to jump straight to CT? But what if you don't have that?
Yeah.
That's something that I think is really important for people to understand how important clinical examination is, right?
Yeah.
Labs, in trauma, we order labs on a daily basis all the time. And oftentimes when I come back from a hiatus, I'm always canceling all of these daily labs. I'm just we don't need, nothing is changing on a daily basis in terms of the labs that I need to follow. So just cancel it. Plus, it's annoying to the patient. Every day they're getting stuck. And you're not doing anything with that information anyway. So you're taking blood from them anyway. And then it's also expensive,
Yeah.
Pathology. Right. That was a big one. That was a big one for me because I did an appendectomy, and I remember this is the first appy I did. And I remember taking it out. This is a 15-year-old. Took it out. This is in Ghana. Put it in the cup. And I said, yeah, you need to send this to pathology so they can study it. Because sometimes we need to know, is there something else that's causing the acute appendicitis? Is there something we're missing? And they, the surgical tech is looking at me and is they have to pay for this, out of pocket, up front. Right. And the surgeon who was with me, who's there, was look, we only get it if we suspect something is going on. You have to use your resources appropriately.
Yeah.
So all of those things really go into a very interesting, different experience than you normally get in the United States. So I was talking to her about that. I was so what are your thoughts on how this affects your practice, your clinical judgment, things like that? That was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So,
What'd she say?
So, she agreed with the labs. She agreed with the, there was a woman who came in with a rupture of an ectopic pregnancy. Right. And there were some studies that, actually, no, that wasn't that case. There was one with an ovarian torsion. That's the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And there was a step that they normally get, they weren't able to get. But the clinical suspicion was there. Clinically, the patient was acting like that, and they decided to move forward with that. And lo and behold, the patient had ovarian torsion. Right. So, I was talking to her about that. And she was like, yeah, in the United States, we would not proceed in this manner. We would get this step, and this step, and then we would take action. And I was like, yeah, how do you feel that that's changed, your practice? She's like, well, if in the United States I have that and it's not going to delay any action, I'm still going to move forward with getting those tests. But I know that that's not necessary anymore.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's just amazing. what your clinical judgment, how your clinical judgment really improves, I think, when you're in a low resource area, so that you're not always so reliant on things. Or at the very least, even when you do come back to the United States, even though, we live in a very litigious, society in the US. So even though you're going to proceed, like she said, I'm going to proceed with those tests because I know it's not going to delay. You at least have the comfort of knowing that this is most likely what is going on with the patient before you can get that confirmation, right? That you're not relying, it's like, I'm not just relying on some image to tell me that this is what's going on, right? Yeah. Because an image is an image, and sometimes images are wrong, right? Sometimes the images are wrong. And so...
Or what if the image is equivocal? The image
or the image is
equivocal.
equivocal.
Doesn't give you any answer.
Right.
So you're like, oh.
I mean, because with an ovarian torsion, right? So speaking of something like, I'll use the example of the ovarian torsion, right? A lot of times, the ovarian torsion basically means that, the ovary basically, twists on itself, right? The ovarian ligament twists on itself, and it's usually because of a cyst, and it's starting to block the blood supply to the ovary. But a lot of times the ultrasound will show that the ovary has flow, that there is blood flow. Mm-hmm. But just because there's blood flow doesn't mean you don't have a torsion. It just means the blood flow hasn't been cut off yet, mm-hmm. right? You could be watching blood flow be cut off in progress, but because your ultrasound was done at one point in time, you're not actually seeing it happen. You're only seeing one point in time, which means just because there's blood flow doesn't mean that you don't proceed. You still should proceed if you have clinical suspicion of an ovarian torsion.
I know folks listening to this show is like, well, I thought this was like a personal finance show.
It is a personal finance show, but...
No, I'm not trying to hold you stop and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that is to say, right, this is more about career. Like, what are you doing in your career in order to, be able to feel more comfortable with what it is that you're doing? Right. Like, so some of what we talk about, is going to be a little bit of clinical stuff, but really this is about your career and how you proceed in your career and the things that you have to do. So
in my notes, I have practice on how you're how you think, right? Like that's the way you should be practicing, how you're taught, and how you think about things, not on how to prevent getting sued. Right. Like, let's be honest, that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. People order things just to protect themselves.
Right.
And whether or not it's correct or not, it is a reaction to the current way in which things are in the United mm-hmm. States, just letting people know and stuff.
Exactly. So. Or people don't make a certain decision because they're afraid that they're going to get sued. I mean, how many times have you seen people don't want to take somebody to surgery because, well, if it's not that, then, it's like, but
yeah.
It's like, you can't worry about being sued.
Cultural competence is important also.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's part of my notes. Cultural competence is very important. Like, you got to understand situational awareness, that you have at least seen different conditions, not just in what you see on the textbook or what you see in your homogenous area where you're learning, but also mm-hmm. what it looks like in somebody else who may be darker hued or speak a different language or eat different types of food. Like, these are the things that you got to be aware of. And I think it's important to do mm-hmm. a low resource setting. I know you, so I would say mission work for everyone, but I know you don't necessarily believe that. But.
Right. So what I have said in the past is, I don't think everybody needs to do a mission trip. I do think that people do need to go to low resourced areas. Some people can just go to low resourced areas, rural areas in the United States, but I don't think that everybody needs to do a mission, an international medical mission. I don't think that everybody is built for that. I think that some people can go to do international missions and actually do more harm than good. And that is my concern, right? Is when people go to these, international mission trips, and because they're out of the United States, they feel comfortable doing whatever it is that they want to do because who's going to sue me? Who's going to double check me? Who's going to do
Cue
whatever
the
it is to me?
HBO movie. What's the name of that movie? I forget what it is, but if Alfred, if you could put the HBO movie icon
Was it
right here.
Messiah?
Yeah,
Or
something like that. But
the
long
Lady
story short,
Renee something.
there was a woman who went over to, I forget which country in
Uganda,
Africa.
I think.
And she had no clinical medical experience whatsoever. And she's doing medical procedures on
Killing
children
people.
and people dying. So it was crazy. It's crazy. Something
Because
that you
who was
going
going to check her, right?
So it's definitely an opportunity where you can do way more harm than good.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about also is the personal and professional growth with going, right? Like there's a certain level of adaptability that you got to have. Hence, what you see clinically and then even professionally or excuse me, personally, right? Like being immersed in another culture. How well do you pick up on certain cultural norms? How well do you pick on, whatever it may be, to make sure that you are able to kind of move around in that society normally. I mean, obviously people are going to look at you as a tourist and so forth, but how do you make sure that like you're welcome back when you leave?
Right.
Those are things that are really important.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, even with eating the food, right? You're going to be in a different environment. They're not going to have pancakes and eggs and bacon for breakfast. Like I'm sorry, but you're not eating that for breakfast, in most places in Ghana. So what are you going to do in order to be able to quote unquote survive your time while you're there, right? Because this is just going to look very different. So that's why I say that I don't think everybody should do an international medical mission, but I do think, low resource area. Yeah. I think that's necessary for all docs.
You've been on a plane where they've called for a medical doctor, like an international trip?
No, not an international trip. No. I've never been on a...
You ever been on a plane and just hope like, please don't call me?
No, you remember when we did that T4D mission and we were all... Remember it was like 5 or 6 of us doctors on the same plane? And then...
There was a medical emergency?
There was a medical emergency. There's a medical emergency.
Maybe because I was hoping to God that they didn't call me because I was like, oh.
Yeah, there was a medical emergency and I forgot which one of us got it. Was it Dr. Ty? Dr. Tyree? Was it him?
The pediatrician.
Yeah, was it him that got up? Somebody got up, or maybe it was JD who got up. Somebody got up. Somebody who was ER or P's or I don't know what it was. Somebody got up. It wasn't me.
So you're on the standpoint of just don't call me like I do.
No, I would help in a medical emergency. Of course I would.
But what can you do as an OB doc?
I can deliver a baby.
But what if there's no OB? What if it's not a, what do you call it? What if it's not an OB situation?
I mean, I've helped in
Which brings me to the
before.
point of what specialties can and cannot help in a situation.
My specialty can help, okay?
How?
What do you mean how? So let me tell you this story. So one day I took my sister out to Virginia.
This story? Okay, yeah.
I took my sister out to Virginia.
You're actually entering in my realm in this one right here.
So I took my sister out to DC or Virginia, DMV area, basically, for her birthday years ago. And so we decided we were going to spend the weekend. That weekend, I took her to a club in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So
Were we dating back then?
Yes, we were dating back then. Yeah. So we were probably off and on, but whatever. Who knows if we were on that day?
You don't have to put our information out there like that.
Okay, but you asked. So anyway, we get to this club and I realized I forgot my ID at home because I switched purses. And we were staying in Virginia and this thing was all the way in Washington, D.C. I was like, we can't drive all the way back here. It's already late. So the bouncer, I'm like, dude, like, I forgot my ID. And he's like, yo, they just really, really, started.
You look old enough.
No. He was like, yo, they really started cracking down on, ID stuff. He's like, don't get me in trouble out here. And I was like, please. I was like, I took my sister. We came all the way from New York. I just want to have, show her a good time or whatever.
I just feel like this is a scene from the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
And then I'm like, dude, I'm a doctor. I was a resident at the time. I was like, dude, I'm a doctor. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, whatever. He's like, listen, have your sister go first and then have her pass her ID back to you. So that's what we did. So that in case anybody was watching, I could show an ID, whatever. So that's what we did. So we get inside the club. The club was kind of whack, actually. But my cousin met us there. We had a good time. We're dancing, blah, 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 whatever. Fine. Club is over. We get out. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. We get outside and we're standing at the corner talking
Is it
to
cold?
my cousin. No, it wasn't cold.
Okay.
It wasn't cold because it was my sister's birthday's in May.
So you guys are scantily clad.
No, we were scantily clad.
Okay.
So we're standing at the corner and we're talking to my cousin, and she's about to go because she lives in the area. So she's going to go home and we're going to go back to our hotel in Virginia. And we see this guy, this drunk guy, and he's walking down the street going like this, clapping on the 1 and the 3, like this, like that.
Why you say
Like
that
this.
for? Okay.
So he clapping on the 1 and the 3. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yes, we know what you
So
mean.
he clapping on the 1 and the 3.
If you don't know what we mean, look it up.
You know what we mean.
We know what we mean.
So he walks down the street past us, and my cousin's like, what the hell music is he listening to? So we laugh about it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He comes back towards the corner, and now he's standing in front of this other guy, and he's clapping like this, and the other guy's like, yo, stand back, stand back. He goes and he swings at the other guy. The other
Wait,
guy,
who swings?
the 1 and the 3,
The drunk guy-
swings.
drunk guy
the drunk
swings.
guy, the
Okay,
drunk
go
guy
ahead.
swings because he's clearly drunk. He swings at this guy,
Okay, so he
and the
attempts to
other guy
assault him.
ducks out of the way and Cole clocks him right on the jaw. This guy goes down like a 2x4. Boom.
Yeah, not able to protect himself.
Oh my God, we're at the corner. So he lands in the street. He lands right off the curb into the street. And we're all looking like, holy crap. My sister, who's a nurse, is like, let's get out of here.
Yo, why you calling her out like that? Damn.
And I'm like, we cannot leave him here like this.
You gotta run the danger.
He starts,
Oh, so he's snoring. He's knocked out.
no, he's not snoring.
He's unconscious.
I don't know what he is, but he's,
Tongue is in the back of the throat.
yes. And blood is now pouring from the side of his head. So I'm like, oh my God. So
What did you do?
I go down, I look at him, I assess him. He's got a pulse or whatever. And he's, what do you call that again?
I forget the name of that type
But
of,
you know what
yeah.
that is. You know what it is.
Yeah.
I knew at the time. So I do a jaw lift to help him to get air in. And so he starts,
You secure that neck though, right?
Yeah, yes. I secured his neck and I just do a jaw lift.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm like holding, I'm like, call 911. So who comes down the street but the bouncer? And I'm squatted down, securing his neck and doing a jaw lift. And I'm like, dude, I told you I was a doctor.
Actually, I never heard that part of the story.
Yeah.
No, I never heard that
Yeah,
part.
I was like, I told you I was a doctor.
You should have cursed.
He
I
was
told
like,
you, you motherfucking doctor.
he was like, oh, snap.
Yeah, pretty badass.
Shout out to Mustafa. That was his name.
All right, so okay,
Mustafa.
so you could save someone in an emergency then.
I could save someone in emergency.
Okay, what specialties couldn't do anything then?
Dermatology.
Damn. Why did you catch strays?
Ophthalmology.
What about ortho?
I want to say that they could.
Ortho could, I think.
I think they could.
Yeah.
I want to say that
Wait,
they
who'd you
could.
say before ortho? Or I said ortho?
Ophthalmology.
Opto, yeah, they ain't doing nothing.
Ophthalmology.
At least they could put oxygen though, right?
Can they? I
Hey,
mean, anybody could put oxygen. That's not.
text us. That's another reason. Go ahead and text us. Hit that fan mail.
Who are non-life-saving doctors?
There you go. So text us the what'd you say?
Non-life-saving doctors.
Go ahead and text us who are the non-life-saving doctors. We have our list. This is Renee's list. She says OB,
Preventive.
opto. OB is a part of it, right? That can't do nothing.
Get out of here. I didn't say OB. Get out of here. I just showed you how I saved somebody's life.
Opto, derm,
Preventive.
preventive,
Preventive can't.
orthopedics.
No,
Who
you
else?
said orthopedics
Who
can't.
else?
I think orthopedics
ER, can they do something?
Get out of here.
ER be trying to consult too much though.
Get
You
outta
don't
here.
know.
Get outta
Oh,
here.
no, let me consult somebody to take care of the
I saved your
airway.
life. I called the OB.
ER, I'm just joking with you. I know y'all got
I
this.
saved your life. I just called the family doc.
Family doc could definitely do something.
Oh, absolutely. Family doc, internal med.
And guys, we say this in jest. We just joking. Don't take it personal. But you know it's the truth though. But sometimes you can turn around and laugh at
Who
yourself
else?
sometimes. Because
Radonc.
Radonc?
Yes. Radiology.
Yo, radiology. Actually, they should be number one. Radiology can't do nothing. They'll just be like clinically correlate. I think he's asphyxiating, but someone needs to really examine the patient. Like, yo, dude, you're right there. I know, but hey guys, we're joking. This is just in jest. We just having fun. Text us, let us know what you think. Listen, that's it for the episode. Actually, you know what? Real quick, before we leave, real quick, I just want to let everybody know, because sometimes people write to us and they want to know what I'm using, what I'm buying, and so forth. What I am buying, I don't buy too many things with technology. For the past 2 years, I've been using this, which is a Google Pixel 7. I like Pixels mainly because the picture quality is really good. In terms of point and shoot, it's the best camera quality, I think, of any cell phone. Overall, do I think it's the best cell phone? No. I think, iPhone, Samsung, those S23s, S24s, I think those are better because they got all these different things you can do with it. You can charge fast, you can do all these different things, and the video on an iPhone is really dope. But for me and what we do, we take a lot of pictures, point and shoot of our kids moving really fast, and we want really great pictures. And I've just realized for me, like spending $500 or even less than that for a phone that can take really great pictures, that's all I need. So I decided to upgrade. I'm getting a Pixel 9 XL. It's probably outside right now.
Yay.
I'll let you guys all know how that's going in the next couple of episodes. But what I do is I trade in my previous phone, so this phone will go back, and then I get like $300 off. And then that's how I do it and keep the prices cheap. And I got a phone that takes great pictures. And so far, it looks like it's going to be really good videos. And then we'll go from there. You're going to stay on a Pixel. You have an 8?
Mm-hmm.
You have a Pixel 8. You're not very happy with it, though.
Why?
You always have a complaint about the Pixel.
No, I don't.
No?
No.
Okay. I'm just potting now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, now you're potting for real, for real.
What I'm watching the Cape Crusader on Amazon with the Batman. It's pretty good. It's kind of taking it back to the old school 90s in terms of the cartoons with Batman. I really, really enjoy it. And then me and Renee watched, is it The Deliverance?
The Deliverance.
The Deliverance by Lee Daniels.
Sideways Thumb?
Yeah, Sideways Thumb.
Oh, I thought it was okay.
Maybe this. It was like this.
I'll give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell somebody, don't watch that movie.
Well, that would be this, right?
Right.
Like that'd
That would
be
be a
Axel
thumbs
Foley.
down.
That'd be Axel F, right? Like don't go
Beverly
see that.
Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills. I don't see that trash.
Axel F.
Right, don't see that trash, right?
Yeah.
But The Deliverance was kind of like, it's above mid.
So wait, what I watched and cannot wait for a second season is Dreaming Whilst Black.
Is that what it is? It's not Wild Black?
No, it's British, so it's whilst. WHILST.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Dreaming Whilst Black.
No, I never caught that. Wow.
If you have not seen this show, it's only 6 episodes in the first
What's
season.
it about?
So it's about this this young man. He's Jamaican, and I think he's half Jamaican, half Nigerian. And it
we know that yet?
really, yeah.
Really?
I think he's half Jamaican and half Nigerian. His name is Kwabena.
That's a Ghanaian name.
That's true. So I don't know where his name comes from.
Right now, all you know is that he's Caribbean.
Yes, that's true. That's true. We don't know who his father is. That's true. So he's Caribbean at the very least. He's Jamaican though. It is Jamaican. Mm-hmm. And he lives with his cousin who's married to a Nigerian woman.
Yeah, so it's like the Caribbean African experience in
Yes,
Britain.
in Britain.
Yeah.
Which, is just so like interesting to me to just kind of see how they play everything out. It's so authentic. It's just so it's so great. I love it. But anyway, he's a budding film director, a budding filmmaker. And it's just about how he goes about potentially, hopefully making his first movie.
Yeah.
And, coming from the bottom and maybe hopefully working his way up to the top one day. But
It's funny.
It's funny. It's endearing. They really hit a lot of social issues, a lot of racial issues. It's just such a great watch. So
I'd have to say it's very funny, guys.
I love it. I love it.
I like it. She loves it.
I love that show.
But
that show.
I need another season before I can say I can love it.
Shout out to all of the actors in the show. They are great. It's just wonderful.
Hey, as long as it's not another Game of Thrones, I'm good. So,
House of the Dragon, I am waiting for season 3 as well. Because that thing was great.
I heard a lot of people weren't really happy with the ending of the season.
Season 2 could have ended a little bit more climactically. It wasn't. It was a little anticlimactic, season 2, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It still kept me, it still kept me thinking like, oh, what's gonna happen? I still want to see what they're gonna do with season 3.
Y'all are wasting your time. That's all I'm gonna
not.
say. So, but listen, y'all.
Great
This is another
story.
episode of Docs Outside the Box
Will
and the
Bella
Raps.
get her dragon?
Make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And just like we're trying to do, make sure you click on fan mail and let us know what you think about the episodes and let us know what we can do better to improve this show. So without further ado, I am Dr. Nee.
Dr. Renee. Hey.
She's warmed up.
I'm warmed up.
We'll catch you
You
guys.
warmed up yet?
We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box, y'all. Peace.